Sarah Martinez had always been proud of her military service, but she never expected that pride would land her in handcuffs on a Tuesday morning in downtown San Diego. The 34-year-old Navy intelligence officer was grabbing coffee before her shift at the naval base when her world turned upside down. It started when she bumped into Jake Thompson, an old friend from high school, outside the coffee shop. Jake had always been the type to brag and exaggerate, and when he saw Sarah in her Navy uniform, he immediately started showing her off to his buddies who were with him. "Guys, this is Sarah. She's a Navy SEAL," Jake announced loudly, his voice carrying across the busy sidewalk. "She's done all those secret missions and everything." Sarah tried to correct him immediately. "Jake, no, I'm not a SEAL. I work in intelligence." But Jake was already too excited to listen. His friends gathered around, asking questions about combat missions and special operations. The more Sarah tried to explain her actual role, the more Jake seemed to embellish her service record. He told stories about her supposedly jumping out of helicopters and conducting underwater demolitions, none of which were true. "Jake, please stop," Sarah said firmly. "You're making this sound like something it's not. I analyze data and work with communications. I've never been through SEAL training." But the damage was already spreading. Jake had posted a video on social media during their conversation, claiming his SEAL friend was being modest about her heroic service. Within hours, the video had been shared hundreds of times, with people praising Sarah for her supposed special operations background. The situation escalated when Marcus Webb, a retired Marine who had been watching the encounter from across the street, approached the group. Webb had served alongside actual SEALs and knew the tight-knit community well. He had been listening to Jake's increasingly wild claims and growing more suspicious by the minute. "Excuse me," Webb interrupted, his voice stern and authoritative. "I couldn't help but overhear. You're claiming to be a Navy SEAL." Sarah's heart sank. She could see the suspicion in Webb's eyes and knew exactly where this was heading. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. My friend here was, I know stolen valor when I see it." Webb cut her off. "Do you have any idea how many real SEALs died earning that title? And here you are, pretending to be one of them for what? Attention? Free drinks." The accusation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Stolen valor, the act of falsely claiming military honors or service records, was not only morally reprehensible, but also a federal crime. She had seen cases of people pretending to be veterans or special forces members to gain respect, benefits, or sympathy. The thought of being accused of such a thing made her feel sick. "Sir, I need you to understand," Sarah tried again, her voice steady despite her growing panic. "I am active duty Navy, but I work in intelligence. I have never claimed to be a SEAL. My friend here got confused about my role." But Webb was already pulling out his phone. "Save it for the police. I'm calling this in right now." Jake finally seemed to realize the seriousness of what was happening. "Whoa, wait a minute. I think there's been some kind of mix-up here. Sarah's really in the Navy. Show him your ID, Sarah." Sarah reached for her military identification, but Webb held up his hand. "ID can be faked. I've seen enough phonies with fake credentials. The real SEALs I know don't go around letting people brag about their service in coffee shops." The situation continued to deteriorate as more people gathered around. Some were filming with their phones. Others were taking sides in the argument. Sarah found herself in the impossible position of trying to prove she wasn't claiming to be something she had never claimed to be in the first place. When the San Diego police arrived 20 minutes later, Webb immediately approached the officers with his complaint. "This woman has been impersonating a Navy SEAL," he told Officer Rodriguez, the lead responder. "I heard her whole spiel about special operations missions. It's classic stolen valor, and I want to press charges." Officer Rodriguez looked at Sarah, taking note of her Navy uniform and the genuine military bearing that came from 6 years of service. "Ma'am, can you explain what happened here?" Sarah took a deep breath, trying to remain calm and professional despite the surreal nature of the situation. "Officer, I am Petty Officer 2nd Class Sarah Martinez, currently stationed at Naval Base San Diego in the Intelligence Specialist rating. I was meeting a friend for coffee when he mistakenly told his friends I was a SEAL. I corrected him multiple times, but this gentleman overheard and accused me of stolen valor." She handed over her military ID and her base access card. "You can verify my status by calling the base. I work in the Intelligence Operations Center." Officer Rodriguez examined her credentials carefully. Everything appeared genuine. The ID had the proper security features, the information was consistent, and Sarah's demeanor suggested someone telling the truth. However, Webb was insistent that he had witnessed her actively promoting herself as a SEAL. "I know what I heard," Webb maintained. She was telling stories about combat missions and special operations. "These people think they can fool everyone with fake IDs and borrowed uniforms." The crowd that had gathered was becoming increasingly vocal. Some people supported Webb, saying they were tired of people lying about military service. Others defended Sarah, pointing out that she had been trying to correct the misunderstanding from the beginning. Jake, feeling guilty about causing the entire mess, tried to explain to the officers what had really happened. "Look, this is all my fault. I got excited seeing my friend in uniform and started bragging about her. I know she's really in the Navy. We went to high school together. I just got carried away with the whole SEAL thing because I thought it sounded cooler." But his explanation only seemed to make things worse. Officer Rodriguez exchanged glances with his partner, clearly unsure how to proceed. The situation was complicated by the fact that impersonating military personnel was indeed a serious crime, and Webb seemed genuinely convinced that he had witnessed stolen valor in action. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us to the station while we sort this out," Officer Rodriguez finally said. "We need to verify your story and get a complete statement about what happened here." Sarah felt her stomach drop. She knew that being arrested, even if she was eventually cleared, could have serious implications for her military career. Security clearances could be revoked over criminal charges, and any investigation into her conduct could affect her ability to do her job effectively. "Officer, I understand you need to investigate, but I have to report for duty in 2 hours," Sarah said. "Can I at least call my supervisor to let them know what's happening?" "You can make your phone call from the station," Officer Rodriguez replied, pulling out his handcuffs. "I'm sorry, but given the serious nature of the allegations, I need to place you under arrest pending investigation." As the cold metal closed around Sarah's wrists, she couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. She had spent 6 years serving her country with honor and integrity, working long hours in windowless rooms to support military operations around the world. She had never sought recognition or glory. Most of her work was classified and would never be publicly acknowledged. Now, because of a friend's misguided enthusiasm and a stranger's misunderstanding, she was being arrested for a crime she had never committed, accused of claiming honors she had never sought. The arrest was recorded by multiple witnesses and quickly made its way onto social media. The video of Sarah being handcuffed outside the coffee shop spread rapidly, with many viewers assuming she was guilty of stolen valor based on the arrest alone. Comments poured in from veterans and civilians alike, most expressing outrage at what they believed was another case of someone dishonoring military service. As Officer Rodriguez read Sarah her rights, she caught sight of Jake's horrified face in the crowd. He was frantically trying to explain to anyone who would listen that this was all a mistake, that Sarah was a real service member who had done nothing wrong. But his words were lost in the chaos of the moment. The drive to the police station gave Sarah time to process what was happening to her. She thought about her parents, who would be devastated to learn their daughter had been arrested. She worried about her career and whether this incident would follow her for the rest of her military service. Most of all, she felt a deep sense of injustice at being punished for something she had actively tried to prevent. At the station, Sarah was processed like any other arrestee. Her fingerprints were taken, her photo was captured, and she was placed in a holding cell while the officers began their investigation. The irony was not lost on her that she was being held in the same building where she had once worked with local law enforcement on joint intelligence operations. As she sat in the stark holding cell, Sarah reflected on how quickly her normal day had turned into a nightmare. She had woken up that morning thinking about routine intelligence briefings and data analysis. Now she was facing potential federal charges that could destroy everything she had worked for in her military career. The investigation would prove more complex than anyone initially expected, setting the stage for revelations that would challenge everyone's assumptions about what had really happened that morning outside the coffee shop. But, for now, Sarah could only wait and hope that the truth would eventually come to light. The arrest had created ripple effects that extended far beyond the immediate incident. Social media posts about the arrest were being shared across military communities, veterans groups, and local news outlets. Many people were quick to judge, assuming that where there was smoke, there must be fire. The court of public opinion had already begun to render its verdict, and it was not looking favorable for Sarah Martinez. Little did anyone know that this case would soon catch the attention of someone with the authority and knowledge to set the record straight once and for all. Detective Carmen Silva had seen her share of stolen valor cases during her 15 years with the San Diego Police Department. But something about Sarah Martinez's arrest felt different from the moment she began reviewing the case file. Silva specialized in military-related crimes and had developed a keen sense for distinguishing between genuine imposters and misunderstandings that had spiraled out of control. The first red flag in favor of Sarah's innocence came when Silva attempted to verify her military status. Unlike typical stolen valor cases, where fake credentials quickly fell apart under scrutiny, Sarah's documentation was not only authentic but impressive. Her service record showed 6 years of distinguished service, multiple commendations for her intelligence work, and a current top-secret security clearance, something that would be impossible to maintain if she had a history of dishonesty. "This doesn't make sense," Silva muttered to herself as she reviewed the Naval Criminal Investigative Service database. Why would someone with a legitimate military career and spotless record suddenly start impersonating SEALs? The detective's confusion deepened when she spoke with Sarah's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander David Park, at Naval Base San Diego. Park was genuinely shocked to learn about the arrest and provided a character reference that painted a picture completely at odds with someone who would engage in stolen valor. "Petty Officer Martinez is one of our most reliable intelligence specialists," Park told Silva over the phone. "She's worked on some highly classified operations and has never sought personal recognition for her service. In fact, she's often had to deflect questions from her family about what she does because so much of her work is classified. The idea that she would suddenly start bragging about being a SEAL is completely out of character." Park's assessment was backed up by Sarah's colleagues, who described her as professional, modest, and completely focused on her actual job responsibilities. Several mentioned that she had actually corrected people in the past who had made assumptions about her role in the military, always being careful to accurately represent her position and capabilities. The detective's next step was to interview the witnesses from the coffee shop incident. This is where the case began to unravel in Sarah's favor. Jake Thompson, the friend whose enthusiasm had started the entire chain of events, was remorseful and eager to clarify what had actually happened. "I completely screwed up," Jake told Silva during his interview at the police station. "Sarah and I went to high school together, and I was just so proud to see her in uniform that I got carried away. I know she works with computers and intelligence stuff, but I thought saying she was a SEAL sounded more impressive to my buddies. She kept trying to correct me, but I was too excited to listen." Jake provided Silva with his social media history, which showed years of posts about his friend Sarah being in the Navy, always accurately describing her as working in intelligence. The SEAL claims had appeared only in the recent video that had sparked the incident, supporting his story about the misstatement being spontaneous rather than part of an ongoing deception. More revealing were the statements from other witnesses who had been present during the confrontation. Several people confirmed that Sarah had repeatedly tried to correct Jake's statements, and that she had never made any claims about special operations experience herself. Maria Gonzalez, a barista who had served Sarah regularly for months, provided particularly compelling testimony. "That lady comes in here all the time," Gonzalez told Silva. "She's always been really nice and quiet. When people ask her about her job, she usually just says she works on the base with computers. I was actually surprised when that guy started talking about her being in special forces because she never mentioned anything like that before." The witness statements began to paint a clear picture. Sarah had been a victim of her friend's misguided enthusiasm rather than a perpetrator of stolen valor. But Detective Silva knew that Marcus Webb, the retired Marine who had made the initial complaint, genuinely believed he had witnessed a crime in progress. Webb agreed to meet with Silva at the police station to provide a detailed statement about what he had observed. His military background was impeccable, 20 years in the Marines, including deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, and experience working with special operations units. His concern about protecting the honor of fallen SEALs was genuine and heartfelt. "Detective, I've seen too many phonies over the years," Webb explained. "People who never served pretending to be heroes, stealing the honor that belongs to those who earned it. When I heard that woman talking about SEAL missions, it made my blood boil. I lost friends in special operations, and seeing someone dishonor their memory like that, I couldn't just walk away." Silva listened carefully to Webb's account, noting that his version of events differed significantly from other witnesses. While everyone agreed that Jake had made claims about Sarah being a SEAL, Webb insisted that Sarah herself had been actively promoting these claims and telling detailed stories about special operations missions. The detective realized that Webb's position across the street, combined with the busy urban environment and his emotional reaction to hearing SEAL claims, had likely caused him to misinterpret what he was seeing and hearing. His military background had made him hypersensitive to potential stolen valor situations, leading him to see confirmation of his suspicions rather than accurately observing what was actually happening. To verify her growing suspicions about the case, Silva decided to conduct a more thorough investigation into Sarah's background and the specific circumstances of her military service. This led her to contact the naval intelligence community to better understand Sarah's actual role and capabilities. What she discovered surprised even an experienced detective. Sarah's work in naval intelligence was far more significant than her modest demeanor suggested. She had been involved in supporting major military operations, had received commendations from senior officers, and was being considered for advancement to leadership positions within the intelligence community. Commander Lisa Chun, who had worked with Sarah on several classified projects, provided insight that helped Silva understand why the stolen valor allegations were so preposterous. Sarah Martinez is exactly the kind of professional who makes our intelligence operations successful, Chun told Silva. She's brilliant at analysis, completely reliable with classified information, and has never shown any interest in glory or recognition. Her focus is entirely on doing the job well and supporting the mission. Chun also revealed something that added another layer to the case. Sarah has actually turned down opportunities to cross-train with special operations units because she believes her skills are better utilized in pure intelligence work. She's passionate about her actual job and has never expressed any interest in combat roles. This information contradicted everything that stolen valor typically represented. Most people who engaged in military impersonation were seeking excitement, recognition, or benefits that they felt they couldn't achieve through legitimate means. Sarah, by contrast, was already achieving recognition and advancement through her actual service and had actively chosen to focus on intelligence rather than seek more glamorous assignments. As Silva continued her investigation, she began to uncover the broader impact that the arrest was having on Sarah's life and career. The incident had been reported to Sarah's command as required by military regulations, triggering a separate investigation by the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. While Sarah had been released from jail pending further investigation, her security clearance was under review, and she had been temporarily reassigned to duties that didn't require access to classified information. The professional consequences were devastating for someone whose entire career was built on intelligence work requiring security clearances. Sarah's supervisor, Senior Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes, explained to Silva how the allegations were affecting the entire intelligence unit. "We're having to restructure several ongoing operations because Sarah can't access the classified systems she normally works with," Hayes told the detective. "She's been the lead analyst on some critical projects, and her absence is being felt throughout our command. Everyone here knows these allegations are ridiculous, but we have to follow protocols until they're officially resolved." The personal toll on Sarah was equally significant. Silva learned that Sarah had been staying with friends because reporters and internet vigilantes had identified her address and were harassing her neighbors. Her parents, who lived in a small town in Arizona, were being contacted by people who had seen the arrest video online and wanted to express their outrage about stolen valor. Silva's investigation also revealed the dangerous spiral of online justice that had emerged around the case. The original video of Sarah's arrest had been edited and reshared with increasingly inflammatory commentary. Some social media users were calling for her to be court-martialed, others were demanding that she be dishonorably discharged, and a few were making threats about what should happen to people who dishonor military service. The detective realized that the case had grown far beyond a simple misunderstanding. It had become a symbol of the broader tensions around military service, authenticity, and the role of social media in shaping public opinion. Sarah Martinez had become the face of stolen valor allegations despite never having engaged in any such behavior. As Silva prepared her report for the district attorney's office, she found herself in an unusual position. The evidence clearly showed that Sarah was innocent of any wrongdoing, but the case had generated so much public attention that simply dropping the charges might not be enough to restore Sarah's reputation and career. The detective knew that Sarah needed more than just legal vindication. She needed someone with the authority and credibility to publicly clear her name and explain what had really happened. Unfortunately, Silva wasn't sure where such intervention might come from. What the detective didn't know was that the case had already come to the attention of someone with exactly the kind of authority needed to set the record straight. The chain of events that would ultimately resolve Sarah's situation was already in motion, though it would take an unexpected turn that no one involved in the investigation could have anticipated. The investigation had revealed the truth, but sometimes the truth alone isn't enough to undo the damage caused by false accusations. Sarah Martinez would need something more powerful than facts to restore her honor and her career. Rear Admiral Patricia Hayes was reviewing morning intelligence briefings in her office at Naval Special Warfare Command when her aide, Lieutenant Commander Stevens, knocked on her door with an unusual expression of concern. Admiral Hayes had spent 30 years in the Navy, rising through the ranks of the intelligence community before taking command of Special Operations Support, and she had developed an instinct for recognizing when something was seriously wrong. "Ma'am, there's a situation you need to be aware of," Stevens began, setting a tablet on her desk. "It involves one of our intelligence assets and some very troubling allegations that are spreading online." Admiral Hayes looked at the screen, which showed the viral video of Sarah Martinez being arrested outside the San Diego coffee shop. The caption claimed to show a fake Navy SEAL being arrested for stolen valor, and the comments section was filled with outraged veterans demanding harsh punishment for someone they believe had dishonored military service. "Have we verified the details of this incident?" Admiral Hayes asked, her expression growing serious as she read through the inflammatory social media posts. "That's the problem, ma'am," Stevens replied. "I did some checking after this was brought to my attention by our social media monitoring team. Petty Officer Martinez isn't a SEAL imposter. She's one of our most valuable intelligence analysts. Her work has directly supported several major special operations missions over the past 3 years." Admiral Hayes felt a chill as the implications began to sink in. She was intimately familiar with Sarah's work because Sarah had been one of the key intelligence analysts supporting operations under Admiral Hayes' command. Sarah's analysis had helped plan successful missions, prevented potential disasters, and saved lives through her meticulous work with classified information. "Pull her complete file immediately," Admiral Hayes ordered. "I want to know everything about this incident and why one of our people is being dragged through the mud for something she clearly didn't do." As Stevens compiled the information, Admiral Hayes began making phone calls to understand how the situation had developed. Her first call was to Sarah's immediate supervisor, Senior Chief Hayes, no relation, who provided a detailed account of how the incident had affected their operations. "Admiral, this whole thing is a nightmare," Senior Chief Hayes explained. "Martinez is one of our best people. She's been temporarily stripped of her clearance while this gets sorted out, and we've had to reorganize 3 major projects because we can't replace her expertise overnight. The woman lives and breathes intelligence work. The idea that she would impersonate special forces is absolutely ridiculous." Admiral Hayes' second call was to the San Diego Police Department, where she spoke directly with Detective Silva about the investigation. Silva was professional, but clearly frustrated with how the case had been handled. "Admiral, the evidence clearly shows that Petty Officer Martinez is innocent," Silva explained. "This was a misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion by social media and public outrage. The problem is that even though we're dropping the charges, her reputation has been destroyed online. People see an arrest video and assume guilt, regardless of what the investigation actually reveals." The Admiral's growing anger was controlled but evident in her voice. "Detective, you're telling me that one of the Navy's most valuable intelligence assets has been publicly humiliated and professionally damaged because of a misunderstanding that could have been resolved with a simple phone call to verify her identity?" "Ma'am, I understand your frustration," Silva replied. "The officer who made the arrest was following protocol based on the complaint they received. Unfortunately, in today's social media environment, the arrest itself becomes the story, regardless of whether charges are ultimately filed." After ending the call, Admiral Hayes sat in her office reviewing Sarah's service record and the intelligence reports that Sarah had contributed to over the years. The file painted a picture of exceptional service that made the stolen valor allegations seem not just wrong, but almost insulting. Sarah had joined the Navy straight out of college with a degree in computer science and international relations. She had quickly distinguished herself in intelligence school and had been assigned to increasingly responsible positions. Her analysis work had supported Navy SEALs, Marine Special Operations Units, and other classified programs that Admiral Hayes couldn't discuss even with her staff. One particular report caught the Admiral's attention. 6 months earlier, Sarah's intelligence analysis had identified a critical security threat that had allowed special operations teams to adjust their mission plan and avoid a potential ambush. Her work had directly contributed to the success of the mission and the safety of the operators involved. Stevens, Admiral Hayes called to her aid. I want you to set up a secure call with the commanding officers of every SEAL team that has been supported by Martinez's intelligence work over the past 3 years. I need to understand the full scope of her contributions to special operations. The calls that followed painted an even clearer picture of Sarah's value to the special operations community. Team commanders praised her thoroughness, her ability to identify patterns that others missed, and her dedication to ensuring that operators had the best possible intelligence before going into harm's way. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, who led a SEAL team that had been supported by Sarah's analysis on multiple missions, was particularly emphatic. Admiral, Martinez has probably done more to support successful SEAL operations than most people who actually were the Trident. Her intelligence work helped us save lives and complete missions that would have been much more dangerous without her analysis. The idea that someone would accuse her of stolen valor is just insane. Admiral Hayes learned that Sarah's contributions went beyond individual mission support. She had developed new analytical techniques that were being adopted throughout the intelligence community, and she had been instrumental in training other analysts to better support special operations requirements. As the Admiral continued her investigation, she discovered that the case was having ripple effects throughout the military community. Other intelligence professionals were expressing concern that they could face similar accusations if civilians misunderstood their roles or if social media vigilantes decided to target them. The incident was creating a chilling effect on morale and raising questions about how the military protected its personnel from false accusations. Colonel Martinez, no relation to Sarah, a Marine intelligence officer who had worked with Sarah on joint operations, contacted Admiral Hayes after hearing about the situation. "Ma'am, this case is being discussed throughout the intelligence community," the colonel explained. "People are worried that doing their jobs well and supporting special operations could somehow make them targets for stolen valor accusations. It's having a real impact on how people view their careers and their security." Admiral Hayes realized that the Sarah Martinez case was about more than just one falsely accused sailor. It was about protecting the entire intelligence community that supported special operations and ensuring that dedicated professionals weren't afraid to do their jobs because of potential misunderstandings or social media witch hunts. The Admiral's investigation also revealed the devastating personal impact the false accusations were having on Sarah. Through her security clearance review process, Admiral Hayes learned that Sarah had been receiving death threats from people who believed she had dishonored military service. She had been forced to move out of her apartment and was staying in safe houses provided by the Navy while the situation was resolved. Even more troubling was the impact on Sarah's family. Her parents, who had always been proud of their daughter's military service, were being harassed by people in their small Arizona town who had seen the arrest video online. Her younger brother, who was considering joining the military himself, was having second thoughts because of the negative attention his sister was receiving. "This has to stop," Admiral Hayes told Stevens after reviewing the complete file. "We have a dedicated professional being destroyed by false allegations, and the longer this continues, the more damage it does to her personally and professionally. More importantly, it sends a message to every intelligence professional that supporting special operations could make them a target for public harassment." Admiral Hayes knew that she had both the authority and the responsibility to intervene in the case. As the senior officer overseeing special operations support, she had direct knowledge of Sarah's contributions and the credibility to publicly address the false allegations. However, she also knew that her intervention needed to be carefully handled to be effective and to avoid creating additional controversy. The Admiral began formulating a plan that would not only clear Sarah's name, but also address the broader issues the case had raised about protecting military personnel from false accusations and social media harassment. She understood that this situation required more than just an official statement. It needed a public response that would be compelling enough to change public opinion and restore Sarah's reputation. What Admiral Hayes didn't fully realize was that her investigation and planned intervention would eventually become a landmark case in how the military handles false stolen valor accusations and protects its personnel from social media vigilantism. Her response would set new precedents for how senior officers defend their subordinates against unfair attacks and demonstrate the Navy's commitment to protecting those who serve with honor. The Admiral's discovery of the truth was just the beginning of a process that would ultimately vindicate Sarah Martinez and establish new protections for military personnel facing similar false accusations. But First, Admiral Hayes needed to craft a response that would be powerful enough to overcome the damage that had already been done by weeks of online harassment and public condemnation. The stage was set for an intervention that would change how the military community understood and responded to stolen valor allegations. But it would require all of Admiral Hayes' experience and authority to successfully execute her plan to restore Sarah's honor and protect others from similar false accusations in the future. Admiral Hayes spent 2 days crafting her response to the Sarah Martinez situation, knowing that her intervention needed to be both powerful and precise. She understood that a simple official statement wouldn't be enough to counteract weeks of online harassment and restore Sarah's reputation. The Admiral decided on a multi-pronged approach that would address the false allegations directly while also establishing new protections for military personnel facing similar situations. Her first step was to contact the commanding officer of Naval Base San Diego, Captain Rodriguez, to coordinate a joint response. Captain Rodriguez had been following the case closely and was relieved to hear that Admiral Hayes was taking direct action to resolve the situation. "Admiral, this case has been a disaster for everyone involved," Captain Rodriguez explained during their secure video call. "Martinez is one of our most valuable assets, and watching her get destroyed by false allegations has been incredibly frustrating. My entire command knows she's innocent, but we haven't had the authority to make the kind of public statement that would really matter." Admiral Hayes outlined her plan, which included immediate restoration of Sarah's security clearance, a public statement detailing Sarah's actual contributions to military operations, and a new protocol for handling stolen valor allegations involving active duty personnel. Most importantly, the Admiral planned to personally meet with Sarah to deliver the news and ensure she had the support needed to rebuild her career and reputation. The meeting between Admiral Hayes and Sarah Martinez took place in a secure conference room at Naval Base San Diego. Sarah, who had been living under enormous stress for weeks, was visibly nervous as she entered the room. She had no idea why she was being summoned to meet with such a senior officer, and her recent experiences had made her wary of any unexpected developments. "Petty Officer Martinez, please have a seat," Admiral Hayes began, her tone warm but professional. "I want you to know from the outset that you're here because I needed to personally apologize for what you've been put through, and to inform you that we're taking immediate action to set the record straight." Sarah's relief was visible, but she remained cautious. "Ma'am, I appreciate your attention to this situation. I've been trying to handle this professionally, but it's been very difficult to continue my work effectively while these allegations are hanging over me." Admiral Hayes pulled out a thick folder containing Sarah's service record and intelligence contributions. "Before we discuss the resolution, I want you to understand exactly how valuable your service has been to the special operations community. Over the past 3 years, your intelligence analysis has directly supported 47 special operations missions, including several that would have been significantly more dangerous without your contributions." The Admiral opened the folder and began reading specific examples of Sarah's work, carefully avoiding classified details while making it clear that her contributions had been substantial and life-saving. "Your analysis of the situation in the Middle East last year helped the SEAL team avoid an ambush that could have resulted in casualties. Your development of new pattern recognition techniques has been adopted by intelligence units throughout the Pacific Fleet. Your work represents exactly the kind of dedicated, professional service that makes our special operations successful." Sarah listened in amazement as Admiral Hayes detailed contributions she had made that she hadn't even realized were being noticed at such senior levels. Her work had always been part of larger team efforts, and she had never sought individual recognition for her analysis and recommendations. "Ma'am, I had no idea that my work was being tracked at this level," Sarah responded. "I've always just tried to do my job well and provide the best possible intelligence support. I never expected recognition, and I certainly never claimed to be anything other than an intelligence analyst." Admiral Hayes leaned forward, her expression serious. "That's exactly why what happened to you is so unacceptable. You've been doing extraordinary work in support of the very special operations community that you were falsely accused of impersonating. The irony is that you've probably done more to support SEAL operations than many people who actually were the Trident." The Admiral then explained her investigation of the incident and her findings about what had actually occurred. She detailed how the misunderstanding had developed, how social media had amplified false information, and how the rush to judgment had created a devastating situation for someone who deserved recognition rather than condemnation. The first thing I'm doing is immediately restoring your full security clearance and returning you to your previous duties, Admiral Hayes announced. The investigation has clearly shown that you did nothing wrong, and keeping you away from your work serves no purpose other than punishing you for being the victim of false allegations. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. The past few weeks of being unable to do her actual job had been almost as difficult as the public harassment. Her work in intelligence was more than just a career, it was her passion and her way of serving her country effectively. Additionally, Admiral Hayes continued, I'm issuing a public statement that will detail your actual service record and contributions to military operations. This statement will be distributed through official Navy channels and will make it clear that the allegations against you were false and that you have served with distinction. The Admiral handed Sarah a draft of the statement, which detailed her intelligence work in general terms while emphasizing her professionalism and dedication. The statement also included commendations from SEAL team commanders who had been supported by her analysis, providing powerful testimony to her actual contributions to special operations. Ma'am, this is more than I ever expected, Sarah said, reading through the statement. I was hoping that the charges would just be quietly dropped and that I could get back to work. I never imagined that anyone at your level would take such a direct interest in setting the record straight. Admiral Hayes explained that the case had broader implications beyond Sarah's individual situation. This incident has raised serious questions about how we protect military personnel from false stolen valor allegations and social media harassment. Your case is going to establish new protocols that will help prevent similar situations in the future. The Admiral outlined the new procedures she was implementing, which included mandatory verification of military status before any stolen valor allegations were pursued, improved coordination between civilian law enforcement and military commands, and better support systems for military personnel facing false accusations. We're also going to be more proactive about educating the public on different military roles and specialties, Admiral Hayes explained. Part of the problem in your case was that civilians don't understand the variety of ways people serve in the military. Most people think of combat roles when they think of military service, but intelligence professionals like yourself are equally important to mission success. The Admiral's intervention extended beyond official statements and policy changes. She personally contacted several veterans organizations that have been critical of Sarah online, providing them with accurate information about the case and asking them to help correct the false narratives that had developed on social media. One of these calls was to Marcus Webb, the retired Marine who had initiated the stolen valor complaint. Admiral Hayes approached this conversation carefully, understanding that Webb's motivations had been genuine even though his accusations were wrong. Mr. Webb, I'm calling to provide you with accurate information about the incident you reported, Admiral Hayes began. Petty Officer Martinez is indeed an active-duty sailor, and she has never made any claims about being a SEAL. Your concern about protecting the honor of special operations personnel is commendable, but in this case, you were provided with incorrect information about what had actually occurred. Webb was initially defensive, but as Admiral Hayes explained Sarah's actual service record and the investigation findings, he began to understand how the misunderstanding had developed. Admiral, if what you're telling me is true, then I owe that young woman a serious apology. I was trying to protect the reputation of fallen SEALs, but I ended up attacking someone who was actually supporting the SEAL community through her work. The Admiral arranged for Webb to meet with Sarah and personally apologize for the false accusations. This meeting, which took place at Naval Base San Diego with Admiral Hayes present, was emotional for both parties. Webb was genuinely remorseful for the damage his accusations had caused, and Sarah was gracious in accepting his apology while acknowledging that his motivations had been honorable. Sir, I understand why you reacted the way you did, Sarah told Webb during their meeting. Stolen valor is a real problem, and protecting the honor of those who earn special operations recognition is important. I just wish the situation could have been resolved without all the public attention and harassment. Webb's apology and his subsequent social media posts correcting the false information about Sarah became an important part of restoring her reputation. His credibility as a retired Marine helped convince many people who had initially believed the stolen valor allegations. Admiral Hayes also coordinated with the San Diego Police Department to ensure that the resolution of the case was properly publicized. Detective Silva worked with the Navy's Public Affairs Office to issue a joint statement explaining how the investigation had concluded and emphasizing that no charges would be filed because no crime had been committed. The Admiral's intervention was comprehensive and effective, but it also highlighted the challenges of correcting false information in the social media age. Even with official statements, personal apologies, and detailed explanations of what had actually occurred, some people continued to believe that Sarah was guilty of stolen valor. The initial false narrative had been simpler and more emotionally satisfying than the complex truth, making it resistant to correction. However, the Admiral's efforts were largely successful in restoring Sarah's reputation within the military community and among most veterans organizations. Her public statement, which included testimonials from SEAL team commanders, made it clear that Sarah was not only innocent of the allegations, but was actually deserving of recognition for her support of special operations. The intervention also had the intended effect of establishing new protections for military personnel facing similar false accusations. Admiral Hayes' response became a model for how senior officers should defend their subordinates against unfair attacks and demonstrated the Navy's commitment to protecting those who serve with honor. For Sarah Martinez, the Admiral's intervention meant more than just being cleared of false charges. It meant being recognized for her actual contributions and having her honor restored by someone with the authority and credibility to make that recognition meaningful. The nightmare was finally coming to an end, but the lessons learned would help protect other service members from similar false accusations in the future. 6 months after Admiral Hayes' intervention, Sarah Martinez sat in her office at Naval Base San Diego, reviewing intelligence reports that would support an upcoming special operations mission. The secure workspace buzzed with quiet efficiency as analysts worked on classified projects that would never receive public recognition, but were essential to military success around the world. The transformation in Sarah's life since the Admiral's intervention had been remarkable, but gradual. The immediate restoration of her security clearance had allowed her to return to her regular duties, but rebuilding her confidence and reputation had taken more time. The false stolen valor allegations had left psychological scars that were still healing, even though she had been completely vindicated. "Martinez, you've got a visitor," announced Senior Chief Hayes from the entrance to the intelligence center. Sarah looked up from her computer screen, curious about who might be visiting during normal working hours. She had learned to be wary of unexpected attention since the incident, even though most interactions were now positive rather than hostile. To her surprise, the visitor was Jake Thompson, her old high school friend whose misguided enthusiasm had started the entire chain of events. Jake had requested permission to visit the base to deliver a personal apology, something he had been trying to arrange for months through official channels. "Sarah, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now," Jake began, clearly nervous as they met in a conference room away from the secure work areas. "But I needed to tell you in person how sorry I am for what I put you through. I've been thinking about it every day since it happened." Sarah studied her old friend, seeing genuine remorse in his expression. The anger she had felt toward him had gradually faded as she processed the entire experience and came to understand how her situation had helped protect other military personnel from similar false accusations. "Jake, what happened was a perfect storm of misunderstandings and bad timing," Sarah replied thoughtfully. "Your intentions weren't malicious, even though the results were devastating. I've learned that sometimes good people can cause serious harm without meaning to, especially in our current social media environment." Jake had brought with him a folder containing printouts of social media posts and news articles that had covered the resolution of the case. "I wanted you to see some of the positive coverage that came out after Admiral Hayes made her statement. A lot of people learned about the real work that intelligence professionals do, and there's been more appreciation for the different ways people serve in the military." Sarah flipped through the articles, noting how the story had evolved from a simple stolen valor allegation to a broader discussion about military service, social media vigilantism, and the importance of verifying information before rushing to judgment. Several veterans' publications had used her case as an example of how false accusations could harm genuine service members. One article particularly caught her attention. It was written by Marcus Webb, the retired Marine who had initially accused her of stolen valor. In the piece, Webb described his investigation into the incident, his meeting with Admiral Hayes, and his realization that he had been wrong about Sarah's situation. "I learned that my desire to protect the honor of fallen SEALs had blinded me to the possibility that I was attacking someone who was actually supporting the SEAL community through her own service," Webb had written. Sarah Martinez's work in intelligence has probably done more to support successful special operations than many people realize, and she deserved recognition rather than false accusations. Webb had gone on to advocate for better education about different military roles and more careful verification of stolen valor allegations before they were pursued. His article had been widely shared in veterans' communities and had helped change the conversation around the case from condemnation to recognition. "Jake, I appreciate you bringing this to me," Sarah said, closing the folder. "It helps to see that something positive came out of such a difficult experience. The policies that Admiral Hayes put in place because of my case will hopefully prevent other people from going through the same thing." The new protocols that had been established following Admiral Hayes' intervention were already having an impact throughout the military. Base security offices now had direct lines to verify military personnel status when civilian law enforcement encountered potential stolen valor cases. Social media monitoring teams were more proactive about correcting false information about military personnel, and senior officers were more prepared to publicly defend their subordinates against unfair attacks. Sarah's case had also prompted changes in how the military educated the public about different service roles. Admiral Hayes had initiated a series of public outreach programs designed to help civilians understand the variety of ways people serve in the armed forces, with particular attention to support roles that didn't fit traditional combat stereotypes. "The thing that still amazes me is how Admiral Hayes took such a personal interest in my situation," Sarah told Jake. "I was just an intelligence analyst dealing with a misunderstanding, but she saw it as a threat to the entire community of people who support special operations. Her intervention didn't just save my career, it protected other people who might face similar false accusations." The conversation with Jake was interrupted by a knock on the conference room door. Senior Chief Hayes entered with news that would mark another milestone in Sarah's recovery from the false allegations. "Martinez, I just got word from Admiral Hayes' office. You've been selected for the Navy Achievement Medal for your intelligence work over the past year. The citation specifically mentions your contributions to special operations support and your professionalism in handling challenging circumstances." Sarah was stunned by the news. Military decorations were rarely awarded for intelligence work, which was usually conducted in secret and without public recognition. The fact that her contributions were being formally acknowledged represented not just personal recognition, but validation of her entire career path. "Senior Chief, I don't know what to say. I've just been doing my job to the best of my ability." "That's exactly why you're getting the medal," Senior Chief Hayes replied with a smile. "Admiral Hayes wanted to make sure that your actual service record was properly documented and recognized. She said that people who support special operations deserve the same recognition as those who conduct the missions." The medal ceremony, held 6 weeks later, was attended by Admiral Hayes, several SEAL team commanders who had been supported by Sarah's intelligence work, and many of her colleagues from the intelligence community. The event was covered by military media and helped further cement the positive narrative that had replaced the false stolen valor allegations. In her remarks at the ceremony, Admiral Hayes reflected on how Sarah's case had changed military policies and improved protections for service members facing false accusations. "Petty Officer Martinez represents the best of our intelligence community, dedicated professionals who serve with honor and expertise while asking for nothing in return except the opportunity to support their fellow service members effectively." The Admiral also announced the establishment of the Martinez Protocol, a set of procedures named in Sarah's honor that would guide military responses to stolen valor allegations involving active duty personnel. The protocol emphasized verification, communication between civilian and military authorities, and proactive protection of service members' reputations when they faced false accusations. The Martinez Protocol ensures that no other service member will have to endure what Petty Officer Martinez experienced. Admiral Hayes explained to the assembled crowd, "We have a responsibility to protect our people not just from physical threats, but from false accusations that can destroy careers and lives." For Sarah, the ceremony represented closure on one of the most difficult periods of her life, but also the beginning of a new chapter in her military career. The experience had taught her about resilience, the importance of institutional support, and the power of truth to overcome false narratives when it was backed by credible authority. After the ceremony, Sarah spoke with several junior intelligence analysts who had been inspired by her story and her recovery from false accusations. Many of them expressed gratitude that she had persevered through the difficult period and that Admiral Hayes had established protections that would benefit all military intelligence professionals. The hardest part wasn't the false accusations themselves, Sarah told the group. It was feeling like I was facing the situation alone, without institutional support. Admiral Hayes' intervention showed me that the Navy values intelligence professionals and will fight for us when we're treated unfairly. The legacy of Sarah Martinez's case extended far beyond her individual situation. The policies and procedures that grew out of her experience helped protect dozens of other service members who faced various forms of false accusations or social media harassment. The increased awareness of intelligence roles helped the public better understand and appreciate the diverse ways people serve in the military. More importantly, the case demonstrated the power of senior military leaders to intervene effectively in situations where their subordinates faced unfair treatment. Admiral Hayes' decisive action and public defense of Sarah became a model for other commanders and helped establish new expectations for how the military protects its personnel from false allegations and social media attacks. 3 years later, Sarah Martinez was promoted to senior petty officer and assigned to a position training new intelligence analysts. She often used her own experience as an example of how to handle difficult situations professionally and how important it was for the military community to support its members during challenging times. The coffee shop where the original incident occurred had become something of a local landmark, with a plaque installed by the city of San Diego recognizing it as the site where important lessons were learned about the dangers of rushing to judgment and the importance of verifying information before making accusations. Sarah's story became part of military training programs, used to teach both officers and enlisted personnel about the importance of supporting their colleagues and the potential consequences of false allegations in the social media age. Her experience served as a reminder that in an era of instant communication and viral content, the truth required powerful advocates and careful documentation to overcome false narratives. The resolution of Sarah Martinez's case demonstrated that even in the most challenging circumstances, dedicated professionals supported by strong institutional leadership could overcome false accusations and restore their honor. More importantly, it showed how individual cases could create lasting change that protected others from similar injustices, turning personal adversity into broader institutional improvement.